And there, ladies and gentlemen, on the other side of the lake, we have the famous Villa Diodati, where Lord Byron, greatest living English poet, resides in exile. He was forced to leave his native land after many scandals. Mad, bad, and dangerous to know, she called him.
Tell the truth, Albert. He's the devil. Show them your cloven hoof.
Isn't your theory that lightning can endow a lifeless being with life? To create a ghost story is nothing, but to create a ghost. Let death be our witness. Our minds will do the rest. This is not a game. Gaze into the eyes. Conjure your darkest fear. Call me beautiful.
We have to leave now, all of us.
It's no good. You can't run away from your own fears.
Is there no escape from this madhouse?
And our punishment is that we have created.
So, Ken Russell's Gothic from 1986. Wow. It's interesting, during the introduction you were talking about remembering this VHS case. And yeah, this little demonic figure is hunched over top of Natasha Richardson. And it's like this succubus creature. It's like sucking her nightmares out or smothering her or something. But it always looked scary to me. And I guess unlike you, I wasn't too scared to watch it. So I saw this movie at a very young age. And it was impenetrable. So, again, I had no idea who Percy Shelley was. I had no idea who, like, all these historical figures were when I watched it originally. So, I decided to give it another shake as an adult human being when I randomly bumped into it, used. And, well, here we go. Ken Russell is going to tell the story of this night where all of these creative minds get together. I can't remember the name of the author who wrote the original vampire book.
I had it written down, and then I can't. It's
and of course Mary and Percy Shelley. They're all hanging out in this big mansion, and they're doing a lot of drugs. They're having a lot of sex, and they're having those crazy sort of creative outpouring, perhaps, or is it just madness? And well, that's the question that really I'm going to pose to you as an introduction. Like, is it just madness? Is there any like meat to this thing? Like, like it really seems to me like the cast is trying to overact each other, because there's some good actors, and there's Julian Sands.
Yeah, this is part one of our Julian Sands double feature.
And it seems like everyone's trying to top each other in how big they're playing it and just the craziness of the roles. So it's hard to look away from, but it's also really hard to recommend. So I guess I throw the ball to you, Matthew. Is it just madness?
My read on it, which is one of the many reasons I found it disappointing, is I thought the ultimate idea at the end is it's like this terrifying, sublime creativity manifest. Like, there's just, when you get this much creative energy together and it's unbounded, and then everybody has to scream, and like you said, everybody's in a competition about who can yell the loudest or cry the most or just emote, just non-stop emoting.
I think Julian Sands is the one who becomes the most unintentionally hilarious of the group. Although Gabriel Byrne certainly has his moments. And Timothy Spall, who plays Dr. Polidori, who would go on to write this vampire novel, is like this really crazy, creepy, sweaty-looking, like, fop character. And
I liked his performance maybe the most of everybody.
For sure. I mean, I guess his character gave him more of leeway to be as crazy as he was. Whereas I think these other people were supposed to be sort of creative geniuses. We were supposed to sort of respect their art, you know? I think what struck me about watching it as an adult is that Ken Russell might have actually gotten shockingly close to authentic in a few ways, in that, yeah, maybe all these people did get together and maybe it was a dark and stormy night and maybe they did a bunch of chemicals. And they were just idiots. They just acted like insane people, like people who are doing a lot of drugs do. I mean, I'm sure they're not the first people who ever thought, I'll be a better writer if I'm chemically enhanced or if I'm, off my ass drunk. But typically the results aren't that great. And when the movie tries to imply inspiration, like that lightning is the sort of creative energy force of life, it's interesting because it's not even implicitly said in Frankenstein that it's lightning that brings the creature to life. That's all been an invention of Hollywood, but the movie keeps nodding at this,
Yeah, well, although if I might, because I want to kind of defend this movie a little bit before I further tear into it, in that there were some, like, this was the movie he really wanted to make. He put a lot of effort into certain things. So at the beginning, when Shelley is rattling off that bit about lightning striking a tree, that's actually from the first chapter of Frankenstein. So the monster isn't brought to life by lightning, but lightning is heavily featured, and they're quoting from it verbatim. Although it was curious to me why they had Percy Shelley quote from the novel as if to say that his wife just was sort of riding his coattails. Like, it was weird that she wasn't quoting from the novel that she would later write.
And that happens again and again when Gabriel Byrne's naked in the storm standing on the roof. He's screaming about how lightning is a creative force of the universe. And they flash to her face, yeah, make a note of this. I'll include this in my writing. It kind of takes some of her... it takes credit away from Mary Shelley in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's like, damn, women writers have had it too good for too long. When are the men gonna get their shake?
Exactly. When are white males gonna get their due? But the problem
there
is...
were also...
Sorry, go ahead.
Just while we're going to the literary stuff, and only because, I got a degree in 18th century literature, so this is sort of like my area, but there were some points where it seemed like they were Forrest Gumping their way through every little bit of 18th century culture.
Right.
So, like, the Fuseli painting, which is it's the main image, and was a terrifically well recreated image in the movie. There's no reason to think that was at Byron's house. That was probably in a museum. Well, there were a couple of copies, but there's no reason to think he had one of the original. There's a point where Julian Sands is after his first freak out, and he's splashing water on his face, and it's from this urn, this tub of goldfish, which is recalling this old poem about Ode on a favorite cat drowned in a tub of goldfish. And, like, yeah, that happens sort of historically adjacent-ish, but you don't have to hit every single thing that you know about literature from that period, which is apparently 3 or 4 things.
Well, worse than that is I don't feel like I learned anything. Like, I didn't feel enriched by watching the movie. It's not that stuff that stuck with me. It was like boobs with eyeballs on them. Or that, like...
Oh, sorry, I'm going to pause you. That was one of my notes, which I was really confused about, because I had eye boobs, ! And it wasn't until you just said it now that I remembered it. But that was a terrific image.
Like, what the fuck, right? And there's a scene where Julian Sands encounters this weird, I don't know what you call it, supposedly automated China doll that does a striptease for him. Is it real? Is it a hallucination? Is it inspiration for his poetry? Or is it just a random nonsensical scene in the middle of this movie that is kind of random and nonsensical?
Well, that's another one, I think, where they're Forrest Gumping their way through the 18th century, because those Swiss clockwork dolls were really popular, and they had some really creepily surreal automata that people were really into. And this is again where I'm going to give props to a bad movie, but there were a couple of set pieces that I thought were really good, and that was one of them.
Yeah,
it looked good. I mean, it was pointless, just like the whole movie, but it looked really good. Like, as far as if this had been like 3 separate art house shorts that you just had experimental music and those few images, they would have been really good, I think.
Right. I think that, like I said, we've been tough on the acting, but I think everybody was trying to meet the craziness of the script, and they were being directed to play it over the top and big. In this sort of soup of big performances, Miriam Sear, who plays Claremont, sort of stands out for me. She was the girl with the big bushy brunette hair that looked like she had an 80s
eye boobs.
perm. And she had the eye boobs, exactly. I should have just gone right to that. She in particular is highly sexualized throughout the movie and spends a lot of the movie running around laughing or screaming, and I honestly don't understand what role she plays in the story or in the movie. She kind of sticks out, which is weird considering how crazily big people are playing it. When last you were on the podcast, you were talking about Gabriel Byrne in Miller's Crossing and how he's never really had really great roles to shine. Well, bite your tongue.
Well, he won some awards from this movie. This was well received back in 1986 in certain... I mean, he didn't win an Oscar or anything, but like European festivals and stuff.
An art house hit.
I think this was like a breakout performance for him.
Well, maybe got him noticed. I mean, I don't know. I certainly didn't know who Gabriel Byrne was until probably around the time of Miller's Crossing. So,
well, here, I have a take on why everything was so big.
Okay.
Which goes to my larger theme of these movies that, better or worse, I think almost all of these movies are the movies that the director really wanted to make.
Right.
And I think the point was very deliberate because the whole Byron Shelley circle, that era of romantic literature is the first era where literature becomes about sort of these spontaneous creative energies, and the idea of artistic inspiration is kind of emerging out of them, which is a sort of a philosophy of creativity that I absolutely hate. If we're going to call back to the last controversial Coen Brothers podcast, that was something that I thought Barton Fink was making fun of, this idea of inspiration and you get overtaken by the spirit. But I think the point of this movie was like this creative spirit manifest, and of course it would flow through the Shelley Byron circle because they're the ones that really pioneered the idea.
Right. Well, again, for me, I put myself in the shoes of the people in the villa across the lake who are watching these people through the spyglasses. You know, they're trying to catch glimpses of what at the time were major celebrities. It would be like, I don't know, catching a glimpse of Kanye or something like this and doing his creative muse. But to me, what I would see looking through these glasses were a bunch of crazy people screaming at each other and crying and beating their chests and being, you know, absolutely unbearable to be around. Excuse me.
Yeah, it would have been good if halfway through the movie a neighbor was like pounding on the door, "Keep it down in there, you kids!"
But I mean, I don't know if I want that scene where I saw that Percy Shelley was a creative genius, or that I saw Lord Byron, focus this weird, what seems like evil intent into a creative outlet. But all I see is just bad people being awful to each other. It didn't.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't see the inspiration, and I didn't feel inspired by them. But I had a hard time looking away from it. There is something about the movie, like it keeps you watching, no matter how crazy the performance or how random the next scene seems to be. It doesn't jar you out of it the way typically a David Lynch film will eventually shake me off. Like, I stayed with the movie, but I'm not sure that it paid off, that it repaid me for my patience.
I don't know if this is along those lines, but you made me think of it. Because you don't, like, it's got this certain frenetic energy that it's setting up. How did you react to the framing device? The modern day tourists that were catching a glimpse of the house.
It didn't make a very big impression on me, to be honest. I remembered it as you were speaking of it.
Okay. It seemed an awful choice to me, and very, like, talking about a movie that makes you want to look away, like that part. I mean, I guess it was at the very end, in the very beginning, but like I just couldn't tell what it was even doing here. All of a sudden, it seemed like a BBC One production.
It's weird. You know what it maybe was trying to be, and why I'm having trouble with it? It's like a somehow snootier Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. We're seeing these damaged but really, really gifted people. But I'm seeing the damaged, but I'm not seeing the gift. Like, I'm not seeing the creativity penetrate through. Either because of the creative, inspiration, or because of actually getting down to the work. Either way, we just don't see it.
Yeah, none of them struck me as anybody that could write great literature, which is probably because they weren't writing great literature on opium highs while running around a house.
Right.
It's just a lot of sitting down at a table and doing drafts and stuff.
They looked like what they were, right? Idiots. Just like it might have been accidentally more authentic than they actually intended, right? I don't necessarily subscribe to that sort of idea that there's some otherworldly thing that you need to tap into to be creative. But I will go so far as to say, if you get on a good jag of writing, or if you're in a good creative throne, it almost feels like you're just transcribing it. It's you get into that right zone, and some people would almost call it spiritual. I don't think it is, but I understand why people get that feeling, and that creative feeling, I think, is what this movie is trying to be about. But what I would recommend it for is just the craziness of it. Like the ludicrous set pieces, the way over the top acting, and sort of the weird kinky nature of the whole movie. It's memorable. Is it good? I don't know.
It's one that, to borrow your phrase, would be a good sound-off one. Like, I could see this playing silently at a hipster bar,
right,
projected onto some sheet in the background or something like that. That would be its, I think, the best place for it. This is what I was going to say that was a bit of a non sequitur, is you said in the intro that one of the nice things about historical horror is they tend to age well. This movie is so 80s.
Right.
It is so of the time that it was made. There's nothing about it that's timeless. Right down to like those when something scary would happen, there'd be a drum solo, but like a Phil Collins type drum solo. I honestly thought he's making this really clumsy reference to I Can Feel It Coming in the Air Tonight, or whatever that song is. But it just made this movie for 1986 and no other year.
And yet that somehow contributes to the madness of the movie too. Like, I think that for a lot of people this would be nails down a chalkboard. And for certain people they could sip wine and eat fancy cheese and talk about how brilliant it was. But mainly I think that it's just one of those movies that's so weird it's worth kind of a look for how weird it is. But again, that doesn't quite, for me, mean it's a recommendation.
I can't think of a single person that I would recommend this to. I mean, except for, like, it's the kind of movie that I would like to see, but I don't think I'll ever see it again. But it's not scary. It's kind of historical, but not really historical. It's just mad. Like, I don't know if there's anybody that likes mad movies, but it's also quite pretentious, which, like, if it had been earnestly mad, that's fine. But I think, what's the name of the director again? Ken Russell?
Yeah.
I think he wanted people to see him as an auteur genius.
Right. He did an infamous movie called The Devils. He did Altered States. He's The Lair of the White Worm. He sort of makes a point of making memorably odd movies. And yes, this is definitely another one of those.
Yeah. I liked Lair of the White Worm quite a lot, actually, when I was a kid.
Well, someday it will have its time on Rank and Review. Is there anything else you want to say about Gothic?
Nope, just good effort, but I wouldn't watch it if I were you, to whoever's listening to me.
Not if I were you.